Most people think the spy cigarette case is a James Bond invention. They're wrong, and the truth is far more disturbing. Why would a weapon need to look like something completely harmless? Why not just carry a real gun? And what does it tell you about the world of wartime espionage that the most lethal object in a room could fit inside your shirt pocket and nobody would ever know? Here's what actually happened when Allied and Soviet engineers sat down to solve the problem of killing someone in public without anyone noticing. And at the end, I'll tell you about one man who walked into a room carrying two of these weapons, loaded, operational, and chose not to pull the trigger. Welcome to WW2 Objects. Every object tells a story. Picture this. It's 1943. You're an OSS operative dropped into occupied France. You have a mission, a contact to meet, intelligence to pass, maybe a target to reach. But between you and that mission are checkpoints, German soldiers, pat-downs, and an eye trained to spot anything that doesn't belong. A standard pistol in your jacket means immediate execution if found. So the question Allied planners faced wasn't just, how do we arm our agents? It was something much harder. How do you arm a person who cannot, under any circumstances, look armed? The answer they built was called the T1E1 Stinger. If you held one, you wouldn't know what it was. It looked exactly like an ordinary writing pen, the kind sitting on a desk in any office in Europe. It was 3.5 inches long, just half an inch across, and weighed a single ounce. 1 ounce, that's less than a standard letter. 10 of them shipped packed together in a wood and cardboard box, sealed inside a moisture-proof envelope, ready for field distribution. Think of it like a disposable syringe. A doctor uses it once, clean, precise, no second thought, and drops it. There's no reload, no maintenance, no trace left behind. The Stinger worked on exactly that principle, except instead of a needle, it fired a single .22 short cartridge. You pressed it against your target, fired, dropped it, and walked away. By March of 1943, the design was finalized. The first production run of 25,000 units was complete. A second, improved batch of 25,500 units followed from the Ordnance Department in 1944, strengthened after the first version revealed a myriad of problems, including failures to fire and burst barrels. But here's the million-dollar question. Was this tiny thing actually effective enough to kill anyone? Here's what most people don't realize. The Stinger wasn't even the most sophisticated concealed weapon Allied engineers built. Not by a long way. While the OSS was stamping out disposable pen guns in New Jersey, British engineers at a facility called Station 9, buried in the countryside outside Welwyn Garden City, were solving a completely different problem. Not just concealment. Silence. The weapon they produced was called the Welrod, and the moment you understand how it worked, you start to appreciate just how extraordinary wartime engineering could be under pressure. The Welrod was a bolt-action silenced pistol, 14.5 inches long with the magazine inserted, weighing 48 ounces, with a suppressor cylinder just 1.25 inches in diameter. Inside that cylinder were 16 to 20 vented ports cut directly into the barrel. Behind those ports sat rubber wipes, flexible seals that bled off propellant gas as the bullet passed through, scattering the pressure that would otherwise crack the air as a muzzle blast. Now imagine cupping both hands tightly over your mouth and whispering a single word into a crowded room. The sound doesn't vanish. It's broken up, absorbed, redirected before it can carry. The Welrod worked on the same principle, except it was doing that to a 9mm round travelling at combat velocity. The result was a shot that could be fired at 25 yards in daylight, or 7 to 8 yards at night, with a report that most bystanders would never identify as a gunshot. The designers at Station 9 understood one critical limitation, though. Those rubber wipes degraded with every shot. The first 4 or 5 rounds were the most effective. After that, each pull of the bolt produced a slightly louder report. You might be thinking, why not just use a regular suppressor? Actually, that's exactly what the Welrod was. But it was integrated into the entire weapon, not added to it. Remove the magazine, which doubled as the grip, and the Welrod didn't look like a gun at all. Soldiers called it the bicycle pump. One account from SOE operational records describes a French resistance member using a Welrod to assassinate a target inside a crowded bar, and walking out before a single person in the room understood what had just happened. And if the Welrod failed, if the mission collapsed, soldiers didn't just lose the objective, they died. Remember what I said at the start about the cigarette case? We're almost there, because here's the part that even most history documentaries get completely wrong, and it matters. That sleek leather cigarette case, firing poison bullets at the touch of a hidden button, the one you've seen in every Cold War thriller, every spy retrospective, every top 10 spy gadgets video on this platform, it was not a World War II weapon. It was not standard Allied issue. It was not used by OSS agents in occupied Europe. The SOE did develop concept designs for cigarette and pipe pistols. Engineers sketched them. Prototypes were built and acquired for testing. But curator Mark Murray Flutter, drawing on British archives, states clearly there is no record of any of these being used in action. The pipe pistol was originally conceived for the British Home Guard to use against enemy paratroopers, and it never progressed beyond prototypes. So why does everyone believe this was a standard World War II spy weapon? 2 reasons. First, surviving prototypes ended up in museums, and for decades were displayed without context, often mislabeled as field-issued equipment. The line between "we built this and tested it" and "agents carried this into combat" quietly disappeared. Second, and this is the bigger reason, James Bond. Ian Fleming drew on real SOE tradecraft when writing his novels. The gadgets he described were inspired by genuine Station 9 devices, but fiction-compressed timelines blurred the line between prototype and deployment, and burned a specific image into global popular culture. The spy, the cigarette case, the secret trigger. The real cigarette case weapon existed, but it wasn't Allied, it wasn't World War II, it was Soviet, it was Cold War. And it was built by a weapons designer named Igor Yakovlevich Stechkin. The weapon Stechkin designed was designated the 4-S110T. From the outside, it was indistinguishable from a standard brown leather cigarette case, the kind a businessman might carry in post-war Frankfurt or Vienna. Open the lid, and you'd see what appeared to be 19 ordinary cigarettes arranged in neat rows. But beneath those 19 dummy cigarettes sat a 4-inch firing mechanism. 4 conical barrels, each measuring 6.25 millimeters across, arranged so they could be fired sequentially by pressing a concealed button on the side of the case. And the ammunition wasn't standard either. Each barrel was loaded with a hollow-nosed bullet spiked with potassium cyanide. And the sound? According to the Associated Press Wire report from April 22, 1954, the resulting noise was no louder than the snap of the fingers, and might pass unnoticed in the moderate conversation of a normal office. Now, we reach the man I mentioned at the very start. In early 1954, a KGB captain named Nikolai Khokhlov was dispatched to Frankfurt, West Germany. His mission? Supervise the assassination of Igor Yakovlevich, a chairman of the National Alliance of Russian Solidarists. His weapons? 2 of those cigarette cases, loaded and operational. Khokhlov arrived. He found Yakovlevich. He knocked on his door. And then he said this: "Georgy Sergeyevich, I have come to you from Moscow. The Central Committee of the Communist Party of the Soviet Union has ordered your assassination. The murder is entrusted to my group. I can't let this murder happen." He defected. He surrendered both cigarette case pistols to Western authorities. On April the 22nd, 1954, he stood before more than 200 reporters at a press conference in Bonn and showed the world what Soviet engineers had been quietly building. 3 years later, the KGB poisoned him with thallium anyway. He survived and wrote about it in his memoir, In the Name of Conscience, published in 1959. He described what the poison did to his body: totally bald, disfigured by scars and spots, confined to a rigid diet. And then he wrote this: I, too, was an exhibit of the achievements of Soviet science. I was nevertheless also living proof that Soviet science, the science of killing, is not omnipotent. So that cigarette case sitting in spy museums today, it's not a prop, it's not fiction, it was real, it was loaded, and one man chose not to use it. It's 4 barrels of 6.25mm built to kill without a sound. It's the courage of a single man standing in a doorway in Frankfurt. It's proof that sometimes the most consequential trigger is the one that never gets pulled. Thank you for watching WW2 Objects. If you have suggestions, from concealed weapons to escape equipment to signals devices, drop them in the comments and we'll give you a shout out. Like, subscribe, and hit the bell so you never miss a story from the battlefield.